So we're going to continue with our painting. We have done our contour lines. We've worked on our background, and now we're putting in the foreground and the midground, anything that's coming away from that background. I want to show you, we talked about it in class, but I want to show you haloing. This is something we want to avoid. So can you see the difference between this side of the leaf and this side of the leaf? What's happened is I've left the paint, I haven't let the blue background touch the pink petals of this forming flower. So it winds up having this kind of funky holy glow. You want to avoid that, and the way to avoid that is to, when you go ahead and do your background, you can see how you let your background come up to the line, or if not, even, I prefer actually going over the line. So there's a couple ways, you can do that. You can even like kind of brush that background a little bit onto your onto those other areas you're going to paint later, but even if you just come really close up to it, that's great. But when you get shy and you don't hit the line, then when you go to put these things in, you're going to get this real funky holy glow, and you don't want that. So you want to be a little more of a go-getter and even come and layer over. What I'm going to do is, just to show you, I'm going to cause this petal to get larger. I think that'll be just the way I want to enlarge it. So I'm just going to take the pink, it's going to be, and just come over and meet up with that background and blend it in. Notice where any color comes up against another color tone, or another, intensity of hue, it is actually going to create a line. So you do not actually need to go in and draw a line. You can just go ahead and just let the color come up against the other color, and it will make that line for you. Oh, it's going to be a little bit, it's really light, isn't it? But here we go. Okay, bring that in. If you have to, go ahead and work on your background, like bring it up and over, but I ran out of blue, so I'm going to have to just make the pink work. All right, I can work this and work this. I mean, this is what painting is about. It's, it's time. So you get the idea. You want to make sure that background is, if anything, layered over by the edge of your foreground, so that you're not having this halo effect. Not good. Now, another thing I want to show you is a thing called glazing. And so we've met our edges. We're not going to have that haloing. Let's look at glazing. Glazing is an interesting and really effective painting tool where, if you look at your reference photo and you find that it almost looks like there's one color and then there's another, say you see an underlying, one of my students today showed me this picture where it was an underlying orange color, and then on top of that it seemed like there was some pink in there, and then on top of that it seemed like there was some brown. So the overall effect was this funky gray, but if you really analyzed it, you could see that it was a layered coloring. So what you do is, that's glazing. This has been actually glazed and recovered just because I was reworking this edge. I showed that student in class how to glaze, and then I went ahead and repainted it, and so it's been worked over a bit. So you can see some of the underlying brown in there, and then I put the blue over it. But let's try to glaze someplace else. Let's see. How about I start glazing over some of my leaves? What you can do is grab any color that you think is the color that you're going to want to just make it very thin. And so it's rather runny. Now this is an acrylic paint that we're just going to glaze with water, but normally what you would do is you would glaze with the binder. So we would grab an actual acrylic medium. It would be like the acrylic paint without any pigment in it. It'd be completely cloudy, clear, kind of colored. And it would just be the same exact product, except it doesn't have a color in it. And so it thins it out. But you can also do it with water because of the paint we're using. But you go ahead and you make it rather thin, and then you can go ahead and you can thinly, I was going to do the leaves, wasn't I? Oh well, I guess I'm going to darken that background. Sorry, I was just thinking about glazing and not where I was headed with it. Oh well. So I'm going to make that thin and go over it. I did a real, you can see I chose a light area, so it's going to be even more effective because I've done it on the light. Let me use a different brush here. And you can pick it off, but some of this paint kind of gets into the crevices of your canvas. Can you see how it looks like I'm shading with it a little bit? So it's another way to darken. Okay, so it's still rather blue. Except I can even make it thinner, but if I were to take it out altogether, you have to wash it off, but you can thin it in spots, make it a little bit darker. I could glaze. Let's say I want to kind of shade around a leaf. I'll grab that, that glaze, and I could go under. Let's say this leaf, I don't know if you can see its shape, but this leaf right here, if I kind of outline it a little bit, make it, this leaf right here is over this leaf under here. And of course I tried to paint this super fast tonight so I could make this glazing video and haloing video, but I did not spend the time I needed to really, because I'm sorry, this is just an example painting. Probably not one I will keep. Okay, so do you see how I just added that thin brown on top, and all of a sudden now I have a leaf that has been basically kind of shaded, and it's changed the look of the green. So it's a technique you can play with. Now let's say that you hate it and you wiped it off and you're just like, I just don't like it. That's fine. Let it dry. Paint over it. You can always paint over things. It's called indirect painting when you do that, but that's okay. I wouldn't worry about it. So anyway, those are 2 things to be thinking about as you go through with your painting. Make sure that you're not haloing. Make sure those colors, if anything, here's your background color. Let's say my right hand is my background color, and my left hand is just going to layer over that edge, okay? Just a little bit over, and then you will not get that halo, that holy glow. And then you can always throw another color over. I could even, like, let's say I wanted to make this a little bit darker blue. I could thin my blue, glaze that darker blue over here, and that would be beautiful. So, okay, hope that helps. Thanks. Have a great week.